think we
What's up? What's up, Howdy Partner World? You know what time it is. I mean, we're here. We're here to do another episode of this incredible show. You all know who I am, Mo Alhassan. I'm a manager here of Partner Solutions Architects, but we also have Eugene, who's been on the show before, and then we have an incredible, special, very very special guest actually. Why don't we make introductions? So, Eugene.
hey everybody. Nice to see everyone again. Well, not see everyone, but thanks for joining the episode. My name is Eugene Mu. I am a partner solutions architect here at AWS. And I'll be kind of going over some networking stuff today so that we can let Raja, and I'll let him introduce himself in a quick minute right here, and going over what ExtraHop can kind of bring in terms of network security and monitoring. So Raja, I'll hand it off to you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Raja Mukherjee. I'm the co-founder and chief customer officer of ExtraHop. And if you haven't heard of ExtraHop, hopefully we're going to rectify that today. But with that said, I want to be really clear. This is not some sort of vendor pitch. You're not here as like it's for the timeshare presentation. We're here to. I'd love to show off a little bit about what we're working on, but more importantly, why. And thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, like he said, you're going to know, you're going to remember Extra Hop by the end of the stream. We got to see a preview of the demo that Raja's going to show, and it's pretty cool. Before we get to that, though, kind of just telling people about Howdy Partner if you haven't watched the stream before. Eugene, what is Howdy Partner?
Yeah, so Howdy Partner, I think we would like to say is a developer-focused like show, where we're kind of showcasing some of the partners that are part of the AWS Partner Network. And so obviously these are partners that we have worked with, that we have validated to be well architected, to be cool, like the pretty for cool usage for whatever type of use cases you might have. And essentially what we're going to do today is just kind of go over some of the basic ideas of networking in AWS, but also kind of showcase what ExtraHop can kind of bring to either you as like an individual, but more likely your company in terms of network security. But anyways, going back to what Howdy Partner is, this is where essentially we want to showcase our partners to all of you guys and girls.
Right. And so yeah, we have Alex Masha in the stream, who seems to be very excited about Extra Hop with the exclamation with the hop. Nice to see you, Alex. For those of you watching, Extra Hop, like he said, is a developer focused show, or Howdy Partner is a developer focused show. Extra Hop is a product. For technical folks, if you're an SDE or an SA, like I said, Roger's going to be doing a demo today. So follow along with that demo, ask some questions. Nothing is too basic to explore, and most of your questions aren't off limits. So send us your questions. And then if you're not technical, well, we're inclusive, right? So again, ask all the questions that you have. We're happy to answer them. Yeah, so Eugene, I know we want to set Raja up pretty well. And so you have a small talk that you want to do about networking, right?
Yeah, so I think before we kind of go into the more advanced space that Raja is going to bring to the table, I kind of want to go over some kind of basic networking concepts like within AWS. And so personally, networking I find to be pretty difficult because everyone is always kind of focusing on like the actual application. And we always talk about kind of ENIs or elastic network interfaces, and we're talking about like, hey, like this is what it means, but why do these things like matter? How do these things kind of all come together in terms of like your companies and building out architectures in a certain fashion? So first, I just kind of want to go over like just kind of how many like AWS services is kind of for networking. And so I'll kind of start with some of the bigger ones that I think most of the audience here will know. And it's obviously CloudFront and Route 53. So CloudFront is our content delivery network. Route 53 is our managed DNS service. I won't go into too much detail, but if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. Just kind of want to go move things along. But outside of CloudFront and Route 53, we have things like Transit Gateway. We have load balancers, obviously, which a lot of people know. We have security products such as like AWS Shield or WAF or Firewall Manager. Right, so these are all things that are being used to kind of secure and safeguard your application that's running on AWS. Load balancers, I'll just quickly go over it. It's just like a way to kind of automatically distribute traffic to resources inside your VPC and your architecture, like compute instances, or even like data, compute instances like EC2 or containers, or even Lambda functions. And then we kind of go into more specified things, right? Kind of like App Mesh, which is a service that provides application level networking for containers and microservices. And yeah, so I think I'll probably stop here because again, there's a lot more different services that I can talk about, but just for today, we're just gonna go into we're just gonna go over like those key kind of services, and then we're gonna go into I think probably the most important concept for networking in AWS, which is VPCs. So what are VPCs? So VPCs are essentially just virtual private cloud. It stands for virtual private cloud, and it's basically where you're going to be launching your AWS resources into. And so within VPCs, there's a couple of things that we do want to make sure that everyone's on the same page. So think about kind of like subnets, right? Subnets are essentially range of like IP addresses inside a VPC. But what does that kind of mean? Like you may have heard about private subnets or public subnets. So just remember that private subnets actually have a route in their route table that goes to an internet gateway, which is something that allows the communication between the the public internet and the resources inside your AWS environment. Your VPC. What are route tables? So route tables are essentially just rules that are used to determine how to direct network traffic. And lastly, I'll talk about a little bit about internet gateway. So internet gateway is basically a gateway attached to a specific VPC that enables communications between a VPC and the internet. And moving on from that, I just want to talk about, I just mentioned in the beginning, right? Like ENI, like Elastic Network Interfaces. So think of Elastic Network Interfaces as essentially like a virtual network card. So if you ever built like a PC or anything like that, and you need to get something that you get attached to kind of your motherboard, just think of the ENIs as like a network card that you have to pay for and you have to attach to like your PC. And similarly to like a network card, you can actually attach and detach from like EC2 instances. So if you can think of an EC2 instance, not as an actual, but think of EC2 instance as an actual PC, you can kind of remove the ENI from one to another, with the exception that you can't remove the primary network interface. But within the ENI, right, there's a lot of information about networking. There's going to be MAC addresses, source and destination flag checks, and also the IPv4 or IPv6 address. And then moving past that, we're going to go into security groups and NACLs. And so NACL stands for Network Access Control List, but essentially they're both kind of the same thing. They are virtual firewalls, except for where the firewall is kind of done at is a bit different. So for security groups, think of like an actual, an EC2 instance, right? A security group is attached to a specific EC2 instance and it handles traffic at the instance level. Whereas a network access control list or a NACL does it at the subnet level, which is what I explained above, which is essentially a range of IP addresses within your VPC. So now I've talked about some of the basic concepts of this. But what about a real term use for it, right? So inside of VPC and most enterprise level applications, there's going to be hundreds, if not thousands, of different resources within like a VPC. And how are you going to be able to monitor all that, right? And so I'm going to bring up, one thing. Obviously, there's always CloudTrail that you can kind of use, which will kind of which will log all the API calls that are being made within your AWS infrastructure. And I know that some of you are kind of like, oh my gosh, this is kind of becoming like, networking 101, lecture. But I promise you, it will get really cool in just a couple more minutes. So just bear with me. But anyways, with CloudTrail, you'll always have kind of something that will capture all the API calls within like your AWS infrastructure for you to, send to either like an S3 bucket that you can, query and analyze with Athena, or you can send to CloudWatch where you can kind of set up like metric thresholds and alarms. And so there's this other thing that I also do want to talk about is also VPC flow logs. So VPC flow logs, again, when we're talking about like networks, network traffic and what are the information inside these things that are really important, it captures it captures information about the IP traffic, where it's going to, where it's coming from, like the different network interfaces inside the VPCs. It can be used to kind of like debug, like, why certain security groups aren't allowing certain traffics to kind of hit your instances. It monitors traffic, like actually reaching your instances inside like a VPC. And similarly to kind of like, CloudTrail, is that you can, send these logs to an S3 bucket. You can send it to a CloudWatch, like, log group. And again, you can create custom alarms or metric thresholds via CloudWatch, or you can analyze it via Athena if you're sending it to S3. So these are only kind of the few options that you can right now go into your AWS console and check out. But like we said earlier in the show, this is Howdy Partner. We're going to be kind of showcasing what partners can do with some of the informations that are at their disposal. And so with that,
Let me add to that too. Like logs, no matter how many of them you have, logs are not visibility. Logs don't, you can't really like peer into logs and really understand what's going on, right? And so that's kind of why we have ExtraHop here, is to take you to that extra step and really help you observe and understand and see what's going on with your network, whether it's on the cloud or even, Raja, correct me if I'm wrong, even on premises, right? You can kind of really take a peer in to see what's going on. So yeah, Raja, go for it.
Absolutely. Well, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So where do we start? Let's start at the beginning, because that's generally a good place to start, right? So the premise behind ExtraHop is actually pretty simple. It's that the network is the richest source of enterprise. Oh, sorry, the richest source of insight that you have into any enterprise, into any business, and the reason for it is severalfold. I mean, the thing is, my co-founder and I, we were lead architects over at F5 Networks for a number of years, where we developed a system for them called Big IP, and Big IP is a network load balancer, but it played at the application level. And so what I mean by that was we saw this push from application developers to drive more and more intelligence into the network, because it provided a strategic point of control for the application. And as we started looking at this, the first thing we realized was organizations, the number one enemy of security, of performance, of any application or any sort of operation around was complexity. And we saw networks becoming more and more dynamic. We saw infrastructures where people are spinning up virtual machines all over the place, containers these days, microservices, what have you, all these dynamic workloads. And how are people monitoring them? Well, they're trying to wrangle them using static agents or log files or what have you. And Mo, to your point, yeah, I mean, logs are a good start, but they're a start. And so we took a step back and we said, okay, if we actually wanted to understand what was happening inside an environment, we would use the network for it. And there was this disturbing trend, if you will, of people really treating the network as more and more plumbing. People would say, "Hey, don't worry about your application. Just don't worry about the network. Just worry about your application." There's a word for applications that don't worry about the network. They're called broken. And very, very fundamentally, I mean, we saw this time and again. We saw people would go in, they'd write these applications, and they'd have the database sitting right next to the app server, and then roll it out into production, and it would take 15 times as long, because the database and the application were now in different data centers. And so even though ExtraHop really started off on the performance management side and trying to wrangle that, the bottom line for us is it was about complete visibility and about understanding what was happening inside that environment. And today, if we take a look at all the high-profile breaches that are occurring, the advanced persistent threats, the nation-state-backed attacks, the one thing in common that you see is that every single one of these attacks has some sort of network footprint, because the network doesn't miss anything. It's as close to ground truth as you can possibly get. So while you might have cases where a developer forgot to log something, or you might not have been running the agent on one particular piece of infrastructure, or something might have not have been instrumentable, the bottom line is you can't turn off the network. They say packets don't lie, and it's true. Now, with that said, rather than me getting up on the soapbox and giving you the spiel, I think what I'd like to do is I'd like to take you through a demo and actually show you what this means, if that's all right. Now, one thing I'll also just touch on right before I go there is that I'm not for a second saying that ExtraHop is the be-all, end-all. I mean, I'm naturally biased. I do think it is the best system you could possibly have to underwrite your security operation. But with that said, everything has a place. Defense in depth is a thing. It's very, very important. And what I'm going to show you is how this fits into an overall security posture, and why we believe that the network needs to be treated as a first-class citizen in threat remediation, and indeed in the management of any application that you're deploying to your customers. So I'm going to go ahead here. I'm going to share my browser. Please let me know if you can see this. So do you see a sort of a little bit of a diagram over here with cloud on premises and what have you? Let me boost the font size real quick here.
Yeah, we can see it.
Right. So what we're looking at over here is essentially, as I mentioned, ExtraHop is based on the premise that network traffic is an extremely valuable source of insight into any application, whether it's we'll look at the security use case, because that's the place where we're actually seeing the most traction today. But fundamentally, what we really have is we have the concept of a sensor. And the sensor is basically a system that sits off a span or a tap or a VPC traffic mirrored port inside the cloud. It could be in the cloud, it could be on premises, or it could be in a branch office or what have you. And essentially what we're doing is we're sitting off to the side. We're watching copies of traffic as they're moved from point A to point B. It's important to note that we're not actually routing the traffic, so ExtraHop will never be a point of failure inside the environment. We're watching traffic as it moves across the environment. And as we do, what we're doing is we're performing a deep parse into that traffic. And it's important to note this, because if you take a look at traditional network monitoring, what's it really doing? It's kind of like NetFlow and VPC flow logs, which are important, but they're kind of like a phone bill. They tell you who's talking to whom and for how long. But there's no concept of what was actually said in the conversation. It's the equivalent of Eugene speaking to Mo and me saying, well, okay, Eugene and Mo are speaking to one another, and they're speaking to one another for 3 minutes. And moreover, they might be speaking English. But in terms of what they were saying, there's no concept of what the conversation actually means with NetFlow or VPC flow logs. All you can tell is that a conversation happened and a certain amount occurred. With what we're doing is we're taking a deep view or a deep look into that traffic, and we're extracting features. We're extracting characteristics of the conversation and putting them within context. After those features are then extracted, it moves over to our machine learning service on the back end. And our machine learning service does things to surface anomalies. It does things to surface cases where one conversation or something's behavior changed, or an unusual conversation, or things that are indicators of compromise. And we'll get into that in some detail inside the demo. We then take this information that we're gathering and all the metadata that we've gathered and we've crunched, we actually index it. We index it so you can search. So there's various, I know there's various log file aggregation systems out there and various scenes and what have you. Our record store provides the ability for users to search, look for records, and we can even gather packets. So I will actually take you through a demo where I'm going to take you from a high level view of an anomaly all the way down to that root cause forensically available packet information. And I'm going to show that to you in like 4 clicks, bearing in mind that most organizations take months to get from the notification of a detection all the way down to forensics. And we'll go through that. And ultimately, it all packages together inside a web UI, and we'll take a look at that. So
Raja, a couple of things. First, to reintroduce the show, if you're watching, this is Howdy Partner. This is where we take developer-focused looks at partner products here at AWS. And Raja here is about to dive into a demo showing ExtraHop in particular. But we got some questions from Funny Commentary, which is a wonderful name, I gotta say. He asked about when he or she asked about when ExtraHop launched, and then there's some other commentary about packets not lying. And AM says that packets are the Shakira of the IT stack, which I gotta say is pretty rich. But yeah, when did ExtraHop launch, and how old is ExtraHop?
Absolutely. So we started, my co-founder and I, we started the company in January of 2007. Now, I know that sounds like a long time, but I'll tell you one thing. It's a hard problem to solve. And what I mean by that is, when we first started out, we looked at this and we said, we have experience in application level networking. If you think about what ExtraHop really brings to bear, we're talking about very, very high speed intelligence extraction from the network at the application layer. We're talking about visualization. We're talking about machine learning. We're talking about high-speed storage, because if you think about people talk about large 5-10 terabyte a day clusters of log file aggregation. We're talking about petabytes a day of network traffic. And then I mean, there's significant amounts of technology that we had to put into building this microkernel. In fact, there's a microkernel associated with it. There's a back-end machine learning platform. There's a whole bunch of things that we had to put in. So the reason that I'm mentioning this is because it actually took us 2 years to get to first customer ship. So we started the company in January of 2007, and it was January of 2009 before we were ready to take to unveil what we'd built, pretty much working all the way through. So yes, it's the company is we started in January 2007. We built a very mature product, a very scalable product that we are excited by, and we're accelerating more and more. And to the person who said packets don't lie, completely agree. If you'd like to tweet that out, I would be very, very grateful as well, because it's one thing for me to say it, but it's very gratifying and validating to hear other people agree with it. I mean, the bottom line is packets and the network are the most underserved yet most essential part of a security operation and of an IT operation in general. So, should we jump in?
Let's jump in. This demo, by the way, is it's not something that only you have access to, right? Everyone in the audience can follow along and use this demo.
Absolutely. So if you go over to our website at extrahop.com, on the top right, you'll actually see demo. And to be really clear, this is not some sort of mock-up UI demo where we're taking you through some nonsense and insulting your intelligence by putting you through some sort of canned script. What's on the back end over here is you're actually logging in. When you click on that demo, behind the scenes, we basically launch a microservices instance for you. And now on that back end, what we're actually seeing is we're seeing traffic being passed through in a loop on a microkernel that then passes it. And these detections, the things that you're seeing, you're actually touching the real product. So it's not like you're going to click through and you're going to get some sort of PHP-led script over here. What we see over here is we're actually interacting with the product, with the actual UI. And while I'm going to take you through a couple 2 to 3 demo scenarios right now, we're going to get deep today. We're going to get into the guts of things, and it's exciting. And I personally, when I start, you can't shut me up. So I apologize in advance. Throw something at me to stop me from talking once I start. So let's get started over here. So we're going to go straight over here, and we're going to start with what people would expect to see when they come into our product. Now, I know that there's a lot of talk right now about advanced persistent threats. And what I mean by that is the concept that people get into your environment through a supply chain attack or through or some sort of vulnerability. And once upon a time, it was kind of like, sort of a smash and grab thing. The looters went, they destroyed some shop window and ran off with a TV. But that's not what attackers are doing anymore. Right now, people are getting in and they are they're focusing on persistence. It's the equivalent of a burglar getting into your house, and rather than running off with your stuff, they're putting in a trap door and changing your locks. And that's what we're seeing over and over again. And so when we talk about detections, we talk about things that our machine learning service on the back end detected through either signatures. I mean, we honestly don't need to be taught that eternal blue as an attack is bad. I mean, everybody knows it's bad, so let's accelerate that. Or in cases where we've actually detected things through various types of graph algorithms, through deep learning, machine learning algorithms as well on the back end, where we've actually identified trends that that have been identified inside this environment. So let's take a look at one thing that's been all over the news over the last few months. Let's take a look at Sunburst. Sunburst, as we all know, is a nation-state-backed supply chain attack. And what we're going to take a look at over here is when we say we've identified something, what does that mean? Well, over here, I just click down on detections, and I can see straight away, I can see the Sunburst command and control activity. And there's a few things I'm going to call to your attention real quick, because the thing that I want to really leave you with over here is as we look through the UI, obviously I'm biased and I think our UI, our user experience is very good, but it's not just good because it looks pretty. I believe it's good because it focuses on the way people work. And so I'm going to look over here. I'm seeing Sunburst CNC activity. And the first thing I can see is I can see an offender, I can see a victim. Notice over here on the offender, I've got a little gold crown. What does that mean? Well, the gold crown actually indicates that it is a critical device. It provides essential services to the infrastructure that we're viewing. And what we mean by that is a number of dependencies and what have you, and we'll get into that in some detail. You'll also see over here that we have integration into third-party ticketing systems as well. So one of the big problems that we see in IT and IT operations today is the coordination cost. The moment you have swivel chair integration, the moment you have to log into another tool, that costs. There's a cost associated with multiple tools. Actually, even if it's not multiple tools, it's this multiple views, because now you have to go in, you have to replicate things, you have to put in packet filters, you have to look at all these things, and we're trying to take a step back and say, hey, how do we get information to you when you need it? So let's dig into this real quick. So if I click into details, the first thing I want to point out over here is ExtraHop believes in an ecosystem and working with other systems in that ecosystem. And so there's a framework, it's called MITRE, it's a security framework that shows you how well you're covered across your entire environment. And so we can take a look and we can say, look, this particular attack violates or falls into the following areas of security that you should be aware of and the protections. And as you scroll down, as you scroll through, you'll notice that when we provide a detection, we don't just tell you, oh yeah, you know what, you have Sunburst, good luck with that. What we're trying to do is we're trying to empower our users by explaining exactly what it means, the likelihood, the complexity, how important it is, and then explaining to our users what they should do next. And moreover, again, bearing in mind that as much as I wish that, as much as I believe personally with every fiber of my being that this is the most important thing that you can have, we also recognize that you have to build this with the other systems. It needs to work with the other systems that you have in the enterprise. So if I click down over here on techniques, you can see immediately at this single view how well how well covered you are. And so, for example, if we see, this is the MITRE framework over here for security professionals or people who are trying to secure an environment, we can see exactly how well covered you are inside your environment by what we have and where these detections have occurred. So straight away, we've identified that this Sunburst attack occurred. We can see exactly which areas, which detections have been lit up by it. And now you can see exactly you can see precisely where your coverage is and how you can mitigate it and what you should do about it. And that's one thing that's so key. There's so many analytics companies out there that believe that there's an ROI on their analytics in isolation. And the answer is, as much as analytics are important, the ROI of analytics actually is what you can do with those analytics. I mean, if I turned around to you and said, hey, Eugene, guess what? You got ransomware. And you say, oh, wow, okay, thanks for letting me know. What do I do? And I turn around and said, just what you'd like to know. That doesn't really help you. And so this is what we do, is we have an integration ecosystem where we trigger actions on third parties, whether it's with remediation platforms, whether it's with EDRs. If you have a CrowdStrike, for example, we'll signal the CrowdStrike and we will shut down that attack in real time. So I wanted to point out over there on this detections view, what we're providing is not just telling you a list of things that your IDS or sub-signature fired. What we're trying to do over here is we're trying to bring an overall workflow to you. And as we talk about workflow, let me take you through, if it's all right with you, let's go through why this matters to you, the practitioner.
And Raja, I think,
yes.
sorry, before we kind of go on to that and kind of digging into kind of how things can be investigated and remediated, there was one page that you were on, or sorry, not page, but there was one section that you were on that kind of talked about like meter attacks and like the different issues that were found in the Sunburst like CNC like attack. So
Yes.
can you kind of just like walk through how this how do people kind of like know, which type of techniques there are? Can you kind of go over like what meter is, meter technique, it is in general?
Certainly. So MITRE is a framework that's basically there's an organization that's called MITRE.org, and essentially what they are is it's a security framework that is deployed at various enterprises, at various government organizations as well, that suggests a best practice defense in depth methodology. So TTP, it's tactics, techniques, and procedures, if you will. And what they're doing over here is they're saying, okay, of all the things that you need to do as a best practice to cover your organization, do you have these are the following categories that you have, and these are the areas of vulnerability, and you can block these vulnerabilities by using certain things. So, for example, if for example I want to detect, let's take a look at brute force attacks. Over here, you've got this MITRE attack framework. There's MITRE documentation over here. Again, if you go to attack.mitre.org on the bottom left of the screen, you'll see that T1110 is essentially, and you should see this right here, you will see exactly what this means. And so in terms of security, we know that you can't retrofit security into an environment by throwing in a tool. However, by taking a thoughtful coverage strategy, what you can actually do is you can vastly mitigate and close those holes. And one of the areas that this has really helped our customers is when it comes to, for example, audits. You'll have the QSAs come in. So you'll have your various PCI DSS auditors. They'll come in and they'll look and see, well, how well covered are you against the attack chain, the Lockheed Martin kill chain, or the attack chain, or the MITRE attack framework, and what have you. And what we can do is we can show these controls, and we can provide users with a comprehensive and complete view as to how they can remediate and block various types of attacks. So when we show somebody that there's an attack that's occurred, we don't just simply say, oh, by the way, we found Eternal Blue. What we'll do is we will show somebody exactly what's going on and what measures they need to block against it. So as an example, let's pick another one. Let's pick, say, for example, OS credential dumping. Straight away, there's a DC sync attack where somebody's attacking the domain controller and trying to pull information out of it. Again, these are areas where the ExtraHop system will not just provide you just a laundry list, but actually work with you to help you define a proper strategy for remediation and breach containment. Does that help?
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you so much for explaining it. And I think, again, sorry to pause you one more time, but we do have a question in the chat from, again, Funny Commentary. He's asking, is ExtraHop structured around OWASP or white hat risk assessments?
So what we're doing, we have a number of areas, right? The answer is it's not any one. What we've done is we've worked very closely with various frameworks, with various companies, with various third parties. We don't specifically adhere to OWASP or white hat. What we are doing though is we're working with a number of third parties and with a number of with partners in order to figure out exactly what the most practical approach would be. The answer is all of the above. We take inputs from multiple areas, but we don't adhere to one specifically, just as your attackers want.
All right, thanks, Raja. And yeah, I'm excited to kind of go to the next phase of kind of investigating and remediating. So I'll let you kind of just go into that.
Sounds great. So let's go back over here. We're going to go over here to the overview. And again, one thing I want to really focus on over here is not just the visualizations, which I personally, again, think are very pretty, but why they matter. And so the three views I'm going to show you right now are the three views that our customers most commonly use. Over here, this is the most common SOC view, if you will, the Security Operations Center view. And over here, we see a number of things that one would expect to see. We see the list of detections that we've identified as active, and the categorization of these attacks as we've identified them by a combination of both onboard detectors, signature-based, as well as machine learning-based based methodologies. We see various things over here. We also see the number of assets and a number of what we consider suspiciously behaving assets. Then there's detections and risk scores. But let's dig. So this is what one would expect to see. However, where it really starts to get very interesting is when we start talking about, okay, we want to actually understand what's happening inside this environment based on passive auto discovery. Now, let me back up here for a second. Did you know that the average enterprise today has a CMDB, a configuration management database integrity of about 30%? What does that mean? That means that most organizations have absolutely no idea as to what's running inside their environments. Now, I'm not going to name and shame organizations, but if you and this has been happening for many years. I mean, 6 or 7 years back, a major retailer in the U.S. was breached through their HVAC contractor. We see cases where large retail stores get breached through their point of sales terminals. We see issues with somebody's running a virtual machine cluster, and the bad guys get into the virtual machine clusters, and they're running roughshod around the environment. And why don't people know about it? Oh, because the VMs aren't inside the CMDB. Why not? Because they're not hardware, they're software. And we see this over and over again. We see cases where people launch a container and they don't know it's launched. Or we see somebody runs a new piece of software, and guess what? They're a proud user of MySQL in the environment. And that's no knock on MySQL. But the bottom line over here is this agility and governance, they're not matching. And one of the problem over here is that we're being asked, we as developers and stewards of the revenue and taking care of our customers, we live in a more and more aggressive, dynamically connected world. And we're being asked to maintain these systems using scripts and log files and agents, which, you've got to go through 5 levels of change control to get these things through. And the entire point behind AWS and the cloud movement was to restore agility to the business. And so how do you do that? And we believe that the network is the perfect place. So when I talk about CIFS activity, which is the file system, basically a network file system, we may want to understand what the CIFS servers are. We may want to understand where the DNS servers are. And what we're doing over here is we're identifying these participants inside the environment by their activity. And let me be clear about this. That's not that, something spoke on port 53, therefore it's a DNS server, or something spoke on port 80, therefore it must be a web server. No, we're performing a parse of the network traffic. If that web server is running on port 31337, we'll find it, and we'll tell you that it's a web server. If SSL is running on a non-standard port, we'll tell you that it's an SSL server. And we'll be able to we can characterize the transactions and the entities based on their behavior, not simply some sort of tuple lookup. So here, yes.
Sorry, Raja. Before, actually, I'll let you continue, but I just kind of want to ask, and you can kind of, again, just go through this. But one thing that was kind of going through my head is you talked about how network, packets, they have so much information, yet it's underserved within kind of the security industry. So I want you to go through where you're about to go through, but if we can kind of just double back on why is it that there hasn't been as much of a push for looking at network information, so yeah, sorry, that's my question.
I'll hit it right now. You know why? And it's actually it's a horribly banal answer. The answer is because it's hard. It's really, really hard. Think about what we're doing over here. We're talking about a system that watches every network conversation. And what's more, it has to be resilient. So if you drop a packet, for example, let's say there's packet loss, or there's reordered packets, or there's IP fragmentation and overlapping. People are attacking the system by attacking the integrity of the network stack. And we see this over and over again because a DDoS attack will saturate the network. Now, you need to be resilient against that packet loss. You need to be able to put all these packets together. I mean, a single 10 gigabit link will do 150 million packets per second. Now, that's really, really hard. And so when we take it back to that level of having to operate at very high speed, glue these things back together, handle the exception cases, extract the metadata, put it into a system for machine learning, index it, visualize it. I mean, you've got it. Look, I'm not trying to knock in any other solution here, of course, but isn't it just better to grab the log file and index it rather than deal with that entire palaver?
It's true.
Yeah. In the same vein, I mean, when you talk about how difficult this is and all the pieces that are involved, it seems like maybe how would you install ExtraHop? Is it difficult to get ExtraHop ingrained into the systems that you have? And then I guess, what is the impact of all of this visibility on the applications that are being observed?
Well, Mo, I'm glad you asked. Now we have an answer for AWS, which is not fairly unique. It's absolutely unique. If you want to spin this up inside AWS, you're basically setting up a VPC traffic mirror, and then you're off to the races. We have, in conjunction with AWS, we've developed a SaaS where you can literally point your VPC traffic mirror over to an endpoint. And we have a full managed SaaS hosting on the back end, which will perform. We'll even manage the sensor for you. So you basically you spin it up and you're off to the races. So you don't have to worry about any of this complexity. Our systems will actually get in there. They will scan your environment for the ENIs they should attach to, and identify the assets, and you're basically up and running. Essentially what you're doing is you're filling out a form, and we'll get right back to you in about 10 to 15 minutes with a with the URI that you can now use to log into your system, and it will figure out the names of your systems. It'll figure out the roles of your systems. This view that we're seeing right now with the web service, it'll provide you that view. You don't configure anything. It's there. So in terms of the friction, how you get started over here, it's a hard problem that we have made very, very easy to deploy and get up and running, especially in AWS. What was the second part of your question was, how does it impact the application? Well, we're not routing traffic. It's off to the side. So we're looking at a copy of the traffic. There is no way the system can actually impact your production traffic at all, because we're off to the side. We're not routing the traffic. We're not slowing it down. And actually, this may be a little bit of a non sequitur, but I'll mention one of the reasons we picked that was because when we were over at our prior employers, we made in-band devices, and the first thing that people would say was, "Oh, it's slow. Let's see if we can pull out that device and see if the problem goes away." And we took a step back and we said, you know what? We do not want to be blamed anymore. We want to sit off to the side. We want to provide that visibility, and we want to be able to prove that we don't impact that traffic. But more importantly, in a case where you're trying to secure your environment, it's way, way better for you to be a totally covert channel. And what I mean by that is the first thing that an attacker will do when they compromise the system is they'll turn off the logs, or they'll turn off the EDR. They'll make a change so that the agent doesn't start up again. They'll disable antivirus. Guess what you can't turn off? You can't turn off the network. Not if you want things, and not if you want the applications to keep on running. So there's some very nice properties of using the network for security.
That's a good point. That's awesome.
So complete view of all the dependencies inside the environment, completely automatically detected. So, but beyond that, let's actually take a look. Another thing that we also see is we see cases where people they're deploying a zero trust network access infrastructure, or they're deploying something and they want to say, okay, they've got their VPC and they want to know exactly where traffic is going. Well, these are cases where we can actually monitor the VPC, and we can see where that traffic is moving, whether it's from on-prem or from the VPC. We can actually watch that traffic. And where it gets really interesting is when we can take this information and we can correlate it with a third party. Over here, you can see I've got this thing that says suspicious endpoint. And what we did was we integrated with a third-party threat intelligence feed, marked it red, said this is unusual. And straight away over here, I've pulled this off a malware watch list. So now all of a sudden I'm using not just the fact that we've identified this large flood of traffic, but I've correlated it against the threat intelligence feed that we're taking from a third party, so we can subscribe to your existing TI feeds. And now we can show you that, look, you actually have a problem over here, and then we can work to remediate it automatically. But more than that, it's not just signature based. We perform this ML as well, where we can actually identify, actually, this traffic over here, this is unusual for your environment. And then we can identify that. And moreover, we see cases where people are rolling out, some people may be taking traffic and putting it in an unusual S3 bucket, or we can see traffic that's going out to places that it shouldn't be going. And that's where we can catch that as well. And this is an essential part. We see an entire industry around CASB, around these are the SASE, which is basically devices that sit at the edge and try to figure out where traffic's going to third-party cloud services. But we can take this information as well, and we can show you, okay, is traffic actually passing through these proxies, or is it escaping? Is there zero trust escape going on? And so these views, these three views I took you through, these are the most common views that our customers request, and the ones that they generally have up and running inside their SOC. And this is what we call the detection landscape, if you will, where we've got this view up, the system's running, and it will show you exactly what's happening inside your environment. But where ExtraHop really, really shines is when it comes to investigations. And I'm going to take you through a threat hunting scenario right now. And as I mentioned, most of the time people talk about this in terms of, hey, you know what? I've detected, I've learned there was a problem, then I had to go and I had to instrument the application, or then I had to go grab those logs, and after I got those logs, now I have to go and I have to look at, if I'm lucky enough to have continuous packet capture for forensics, then I have to go and look in that. And if for the best organizations around, we're talking about dwell times, which is the time between detection, breach and detection of about 80 days. But let's say you catch it straight away. Most of the best organizations we've worked with are still looking at over a week, well over a week, between getting from that detection over to the proof. And I'm going to take you through a scenario right now that'll show you how you can do it in about 4 clicks.
Man, I would hate to be the security guy or security person to have to spend that week trying to find it, trying to get all the information together and present it to the CTO or head of security.
Oh, it's brutal. It's absolutely brutal. I mean, in things when we first started the company, I can tell you that we spoke with people who said, you know what, if my threat hunters have to work all weekend, you know what, I'll buy pizza. And you know what, that's kind of the reason we're in a bit of a mess right now as an industry. So let's take a step back and let's go through this. I'm going to go over here to that front level view. And let's pick something fairly random. Let's pick okay. Here's my device over here. I'm gonna pick on this accounting laptop. Now I'm gonna drill down straight down on this accounting laptop straight away, and I'm gonna say, okay, I've added. Now, to be clear, machine learning triggered and said, hey, this is an asset that's behaving strangely. I might want to understand that a bit better. So I can click down over here, and you can see straight away. I'm seeing things like suspicious SMB SIFS files client reads. Suspicious. Why is it suspicious? Well, to be clear, it's not like it triggered a signature. We are looking at this device and saying, hey, it is breaching its own model, the one that we've built, and we don't think that's right. And we've even got an integration over here with the third-party ticketing system. So it went ahead and it opened up a ticket so we can investigate it. All right, now I'm an investigator. I've just been alerted. And I've said, okay, there's something strange going on over here. Here's the list. I see a number of things over here around this device, around its discovery as well, when it was last seen on my network, and various users that have logged into it. Now, I want to say, okay, this device is acting strangely. I'm going to go and take a look at it. I'm going to visually characterize this accounting laptop. Now, I don't know about you, but if I have an accounting laptop inside my environment, and it's talking just about every protocol you can possibly imagine, and it's spidering the network, I'm going to say that my accountant probably needs to be not an accountant. And so, okay, straight away, I've already identified over here that my accounting laptop is behaved. Visually, I can just at a glance, I can tell that something's going wrong over here. So now what I'm going to do over here is to say, okay, I want to understand what's happening. So I want to understand what's happening. We know that suspicious file reads. So what do? I click on files and I would say, okay, show me what files it's touching. Now, I'm going to get on my soapbox here just for a second. Why is it why is it that no NAS, network access, network file system server, if you will, why is it that not a single one will actually tell you what files are accessed on it? I've seen, it boggles my mind. I mean, you see all these metrics around, okay, well, I see my storage, cold storage, hot storage, access time, all loon variation, all kinds of things, RAID, this, that. How about you tell me what files are accessed? I don't understand why. So how about we help with that? The one place that every network file system will show what files are accessed is the network again. So I'm going to say over here, okay, there's suspicious file activity over here. I want to actually understand what that means. And so I'm going to take a look and I'm going to say, oops, I think I just double clicked on, there we go, yeah. I'm going to say, okay, show me what files are accessed. And now all of a sudden I have this view in the last 6 hours of every file that was accessed on my file share. Okay, I mentioned already though, so we've got this information. I might want to take that information. I might want to throw it into my third-party log aggregation system. I might want to throw it into my SIEM. We don't have a log for it from the file server. No problem. We'll make a log from it from ExtraHop. And straight away, look at this. I have this view right now. I literally have a log file entry as to this file being accessed. Okay, what did I do? I went from a machine learning detection over to a log file entry that I couldn't get from anywhere else in one click. And now I say, okay, this is no good. Who's the user? Oh, user's John. Okay, that's really weird. Let's do this. I want to find out every single thing that John has accessed in my environment. And boom, I now have a complete audit trail for every file that John has touched from that laptop in the last 6 hours. Complete audit trail. Okay, John, I'm sorry, man. If either you're either not working quite as an accountant should be on your accounting laptop, or you're trolling my entire NAS, and you're accessing all these files inside the NAS. I need proof. I mean, I love these logs. I need proof. I need the packets. Watch this. Single click. Did I type any filter? Did I sit around moving over to over to third-party systems? I clicked a single button. I have an entire dump. It set my filters up for me, and now I have them. And by the way, it's right here. It retrieved them. I want to take that. I want to download that off to my Wireshark, pop it up in my Wireshark, put it in third-party storage, what have you. Download the PCAP. Click on it. You're done. What did I just do? I took an investigative workflow that ostensibly could take days or weeks if you're unlucky.
Weeks.
And I reduced it to 3 clicks.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. I'm going to take this moment here to ask 2 questions. One very specific from Pwn Noobs 45, who asks specifically about whether ExtraHop works with BGP and equal cost multipath routing. And then 2, a basic question for me about the behavioral analysis and the AI/ML, and essentially how long it takes to figure out the standard behavior of some of the resources that are on your network.
Yeah. So in the first question around BGPs, we don't have discrete or deep parsing for BGP out of the box. I'm going to show you a way that we can do that you can add it yourself, though, which is pretty cool, and we'll get into it later on. The system that you see over here is a completely programmable platform, which means that if we don't have a protocol, you can actually snap it in yourself, and I'll show you how to do that. We're pretty proud of it. And then, of course, the standard things around equal cost multipath routing and BGP and OSPF and what have you, in terms of anomaly detection around the type of traffic, that's we would treat that at the layer 4 level. So the answer is not specifically at the BGP tier, but absolutely from a transport tier, we could definitely help identify anomalies. The next aspect is the training time. Now, the answer to that is the training time depends on the type of attack. So, for example, for certain types of attack, you don't need a training time. Like as I mentioned, we don't need to sit around to and learn that something like a sunburst is bad or a Hafnium is bad. I mean, the advisories out straight away, we know it's bad. With that said, the answer depends on the type of detection. There are some detections that are that require low and slow analysis, and we are able to detect those. And there are some where we can trigger very, very quickly indeed. So the answer is it depends, and it depends on the type of attack. We don't have a one size fits all.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Now let's dig in real quick over here into so that was the investigative workflow I wanted to touch on. Now TTPs. Okay. Yes. Well, let's talk a little bit about campaigns. And what I mean by a campaign is it's all very nice, when you have like as I mentioned, you have somebody who just came in and they did something suspicious and you caught them. But what if they're propagating inside your environment? What if somebody gets in and they start spidering with lateral movement across your environment and start really getting getting into your business? Well, let's take a look. Let's figure some of that out. So over here, I'm going to go to assets. And over here on my assets list, again, I mentioned earlier on that we automatically classify and we identify the roles of various systems inside the environment. These could be they could be cloud instances, they could be on-prem instances, they could be IoT instances. Doesn't matter. We've been in cases where we've been deployed in hospital operating theaters. And by the way, it's kind of scary if you consider in hospitals just how much of a data center every single room is these days. I can get into all kinds of gory detail, much to the chagrin of my wife. But when we went in to have our kid, I was I was in there and I was taking a look at all these jacks, and the doctors, the nurse actually got a little bit worried because I was sitting there taking looking for these Cat 5 jacks and the RJ45s, and they were like, hey, what on earth are you doing? But the fact of the matter is, every single one of these medical devices represents a threat vector inside the environment. And what's worse, because of FDA restrictions, they're more often than not, they're running some sort of old Windows embedded operating system, and no knock on Windows, it could be any operating system, and they can't patch them. So that's brutal. And so just understanding that threat surface is super important. And these are places where we can actually identify what's going on. Let's do this. Let's take a look at, and again, one thing that's pretty cool over here is you can actually search for anything that you want inside the environment. Just as I searched on John at Workgroup, you can search across the board. And over here, I'm going to pick this particular device, Drupal. And this is an attack we internally affectionately call Drupalgeddon, because what we did was we triggered, we detonated some malware internally, which is always fun when you do that in a corporate environment. And we sat back and we watched the campaign blow up inside of course, a completely controlled, quarantined environment, but we still watched we watched the worm propagate, if you will. And over here, I'm going to go down to detections, and you'll see various things that this thing triggered. But let's pick up on one particular attack over here, this Drupal exploit attempt. And over here, you'll notice that straight away, we've actually identified, again, defense in depth. We've correlated this attacker against a known watch list. Beyond that, though, I'm going to dig down, and you will see this campaign. You'll see how they got in. So we're literally piecing together what our friend is doing inside our environment. And here, this device was the victim and then was exploited. And then it became the offender, and it started spidering out across the environment. So these detections, they literally tell a story. They tell a tale, if you will, of exactly what is going on inside the environment. Now, bear in mind, it's not enough to just turn around and say, hey, Mo, you've been breached. Good luck with that. So every single area over here is an area where we can actually trigger a remediation, whether it is through a Phantom or a Demisto or a CrowdStrike or sending a firewall rule into a Palo Alto or working with third parties, or even on the AWS side, we can set up various security groups, and we can quarantine the devices and lock them away to block these things in their tracks. So these are areas where we pick up these related detections. And again, now watch this. This is cool, if I might say something myself. As I scroll down, look at this. What is the UI doing over here? The UI is actually suggesting what I should be looking for. In fact, it's highlighting it for me. Here's my record. Look at this. Here's my payload. It took it, isolated it, it's putting it in front of me. It's spoon feeding me the things that I need to mitigate this breach. And it says investigate records, see the associated records, and it's telling me, hey, you can go to the records page and click on it, and straight away it's highlighted it for me. I want the packets, boom, straight away. So it's literally it is literally breadcrumbing me through an investigative workflow associated with what's going on, and then it tells me what's happening. If you want this for the boss, if you want to take this and send it up to the security operations center, if you want to take it to a third party, to your incident response team, what have you, we're telling you exactly what we're looking at. We're telling you what's happening, how it happens, and what you should do, your mitigation options. And that the earlier question around OWASP and on white hat and various areas over there, the answer is all of the above. Because we don't want to limit ourselves to one thing. Our customers need the best, and that's what we focused on. And of course, the answer to this question, just so you know, is always yes. But if there are problems, let us know, because we are a very customer-centric company, and if there are issues with our system, we get on it right away.
Tangential question here: is it common for security products in general to kind of have? I love how the documentation is kind of built into the threat detection, right? Is that common, or is ExtraHop like very unique in how it approaches the educational component of making sure that you understand kind of what's going on?
So this boils down to company culture. That's really what it boils down to. And when I talk about our Tech Pubs team, when I talk about folks like Gina over in Tech Pubs, shout out over there, she's a rock star. What we do is we go above and beyond in trying to operationalize our customers. And what that means is, when you try to operationalize someone, the number one thing you can do is be consultative, is to educate, and not just turn around and show them and tell them that you've taken a certain action, but you're really trying to enable them. You're trying to empower them. So this is actually something that I'm glad you asked, because I'm going to show you something real quick over here that I'm also quite proud of. So if we go to docs.extrahop.com, and by the way, you'll notice that over here, I'm not sitting around asking for a login or a support contract or anything. You literally have all of our documentation, including our APIs and our triggers and our reference guides and everything over here associated with how you can program the system, how you can actually change various things in the system, extract the data, instrument ExtraHop for your needs. So the answer is, culturally, as an organization, we believe heavily in openness, in empowering our users, and making our technologies as open as possible in order to drive the best, to drive mutual wins. So the answer is, I don't know, to be completely blunt, and I know this might sound almost arrogant and it's not intended to, but I don't really know what other security products do, but I do know that this works for our users.
Yeah, I just like how intentional you all were in making sure that the educational component was something that is really consistent throughout the whole user experience. So props to you all there.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And it's, again, I know, look, I can talk about this all day long. At the same time, the bottom line is, many companies out there make the mistake of assuming that the vendor sets value. The vendor can influence value. The customer sets value. And that's why we've worked so hard with our customers to make sure that they're operationalized, that they're getting value out of the system. I mean, everything you see over here, every last thing, whether it's the UI and the graphs and the dependency maps, every single thing that you see over here has an API around it. So if you don't want to use our API, our UI, for whatever reason, you can actually pull it out and you can put the data. It's your data. You can visualize it wherever you want. And so that's one thing that we also pride ourselves on as well. Any questions before I move on to something else that I'd love to show you?
Yeah. So I kind of have like this thought, like when there's so much kind of educational material, I'm also kind of wondering. I mean, obviously you'll have security like engineers be taking a look at this, but because your company has spent so much time working on the UI, and this is it's a beautiful dashboard. And I know some of the animations aren't really going through because of the frame rate. But I'm assuming that like it's silky smooth like in person. But what are kind of like the intended like roles that you want your customers to kind of like start using? Is this something that not a security oriented developer can take a look at? Is it for product managers, for TPMs? Like, yeah.
Outstanding question. So first and foremost, the workflows that you see over here associated with investigations and detections, they're clearly aimed at security, right? We're walking you through a scenario saying, look, we've identified this. We think you should investigate this next. Grab the log file from here, correlate against threat intelligence here, grab the packets over here. And by the way, contact incident response and tell them that you've got hit by this MITRE, this particular MITRE ID, or this particular OWASP A9 category. So there's definitely the prescriptive workflows that you walk through. They're definitely aimed at security. But with that said, I mentioned right at the very outset that the value that this company is built on on terms of technology is the value of the network as a data source. So let's put a finer point around that, shall we? Let's take a look. Again, I'm going to use my search tool over here. I'm going to take a look at in my cloud environment. I'm going to take a look for my RDS instance sitting inside AWS. And straight away, I'm going to take a look over here. I've got my cloud instance ID. I can see the type of instance type. I can see the cloud account that's on my VPC that it's sitting on. There's a number of things over here that we picked up. But what I'm going to do over here is I'm now a cloud admin, and I've got this asset over here, and I'm trying to understand what's happening. Now, I do have one breach detected over here, but let's put the breach, let's put the indicator of compromise aside just for a second, and let's focus on what this device is doing. I'm going to click over here on database. And so I'm now characterizing this database, and I'm going to say, show me what this database is doing. And this is where it gets really interesting. Look at this. I can see the SQL going in and out of my database. Now, we all know, if you're a database admin and you turn on logging, your database just slowed down. So if you've got, for example, a slow database and you turn on logging, guess what you've got? A slower database. And so in terms of being able to understand what's happening inside my environment, across my infrastructure, not just HTTP, but databases, middleware, DNS, message queues, file servers, it's all there. And we bring it there, and we literally bring it to you. So it's not, and moreover, it's not just that we show you the SQL, we'll show you how long it's taking. So the answer is yes, the workflows are completely geared towards security, and we are proud of that, of those workflows and the ecosystem that we've built. But in terms of the value of the information that we surface, the value of the information is applicable to more than any one particular use case, and it's something we're quite proud of.
So I just kind of one comment and then kind of a follow-up question. But Mo, I know that we talk a lot about kind of like validations like within the APN, and I'm just thinking like, wow, like this is like if some of our partners like use this will
checks all the boxes. Checks all of the boxes. The best practices, the visibility,
having the SQL query, right, like so readily available, and also like what you were mentioning about like slowing down like RDS instances, and this doesn't do that, right? That's like a huge win. And also I think in terms of like not having the extra loss kind of coming out, also cost savings. Anyways, that just kind of like running through my head a little bit. But the follow-up question is, and Raja, I know that this might be going into kind of internal security posture with ExtraHop, but this seems something like your solution is something that you would totally kind of dog food like your own solution with.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay. We are the most we I'm trying to think of the right way to put this, but I can tell you that one area that we are absolutely we have tremendous zeal is around the usability of our product. I mean, my co-founder Jesse, he will I've seen cases where he's using the system internally, trying to figure out exactly what's happening inside the environment, and something doesn't work, and you know what, he's all over the team. And by the way, the team, our UX team, the is and our product management team and the people that we work with inside the organization, they are so passionate about the customer experience. I mean, this is not, again, if we wanted, I mean, we could have just thrown up various visualizations and had nice pew diagrams. We've seen this all the time, where people, one particular company in our space actually hired the creative director of Tron to build out their UI. I'm not kidding. They hired the creative director of Tron, and the UI looked absolutely amazing. Was it usable? Well, I'm going to withhold my opinion, but it looked amazing. And what you see over here is the result of years of focus and optimizing the user experience.
And I mean, yeah, like obviously, like the audience and us can see that, and also kind of like how useful it is, kind of going through all of this. So, anyways, yeah, those are my kind of comments and questions. And so, Raja, I'll let you kind of continue on.
Sure. So I would like, again, I understand that we have a dev crowd over here, and so but rather than just show you the high level demo, we're going to get into some of the nuts and bolts of the system right now, and this is where it gets kind of fun. And not that this hasn't been fun so far. So over here, actually, let me move the video section up there. Okay, here we go. Over here, we are looking, as I mentioned earlier on, we're looking at a full system over here. This is not some sort of UI walkthrough mock-up. We can take a look at a number of concepts. Now, one thing I mentioned earlier on is if you don't have a protocol, you can make a protocol. And what I mean by that is we have cases where customers, they've had some sort of in-house protocol that they developed, and sometimes they laid it over XML and they wanted to extract something from the inside of a document. Sometimes it was a completely custom wire protocol. And what we can do is we can actually define various protocols and various actions to take based on a system called triggers. Watch this. Now, over here, with triggers, we have the ability to customize the behavior of the ExtraHop platform. And the ExtraHop platform itself, if I dig into this real quick over here, you'll see, sorry, these sensors, what they do is they run their own microkernel. And this is a packet processing microkernel that looks at all the traffic as it moves across the wire and puts it back together in real time. So it stream processes it. And we have the ability to define protocols, generate events, and extract intelligence from that traffic as it moves across the wire. Now, there are various cases where a user may need to customize what we're parsing. They may need to say that we built our own thing for whatever. It could be a legacy thing, it could be a mainframe batch job, what have you. A number of reasons. So we've got cases where customers need to are running some sort of screen scraping thing over Telnet, and they might need to actually understand what's going on. I'll withhold my opinion as to those approaches, but it is what it is, right? So there's in those cases, what you can actually do is you can dig in, you can create your own trigger. So in this case, take a look at this. This is a payment processing application that a user defined for their system. Now, it's not, I don't have network data in this demo for it, but I can show you how it looks. And so for payment processing, you can click down over here, and now, actually, let me increase this. What you have is the ability to customize the ExtraHop system to pull out attributes and log them, or instrument various things on third-party applications. Look at this. In this case, we're using this is a payment processing protocol called Orbital that's used by one of the larger banking institutions in the country. And in these cases, traffic's moving across the wire, and they're trying to one of the problems that they had today is it's hitting their systems, and then they get their batch reconciliations at the end of the day. Well, what if they want to pull it out straight away? What if they want to say, hey, I want to understand if something's not right now at wire speed, because that's what we do. And so what we can do in these cases is we can literally extract fields and record them. And then you can query them and you can render them and you can take them and put them into your third-party log aggregation systems and visualize them as you see fit. And it's all here. And these are all available for customers to build themselves or work with our team to build and deploy. And you can see this. You can see transaction by state, money by state, by card brand, by merchant. And what's more is you can actually even set business logic to say, look, when this happens, I need you to call Jim straight away or what have you. And this is not theoretical. These are things that the system does. And I will show you a number of areas where we can do this. So you can create, there are cases over here where you may even choose to say, look, I would like to say every time I see something in my system, and it's not just cloud and enterprise and on-prem. Do you know what DICOM is? DICOM is a radiology protocol that's used to transfer X-rays and MRI information around. Can you imagine how interesting it is for the customer who purchased our system to be able to say, look, I don't want to wait until tomorrow for my EHR, EMR to tell me that this image didn't come through. I need to know right now because my patient's with me right now. And that MRI that didn't go through, I can't call them back because that's thousands of dollars. So these are cases where the value of the network is such that you can actually specify events to log, where you can take it out and you can extract it off the wire straight away, and you can build these out. And so we're proud of our UI, but for power users like we see with AWS, for DevOps users, for developers, this is a beautiful system that makes the network, I think it promotes the network to its place of relevance as a system that can be used by developers. Any thoughts before I show you something else?
I'm super impressed with this. I'm big on on event-driven architectures in particular, and this just kind of flashes that light bulb of like, oh, when this happens, trigger this thing. Which after the show we'll talk a little bit about EventBridge maybe. But yeah, why don't you keep going? And
well, actually, sorry, and before we haven't done this in a while because I think Mo and I are both a little bit enthralled with what Raj has been presenting. But if you've just joined, welcome back to Howdy Partner. Today our partner is ExtraHop, and joining us is Raja, one of the co-founders and chief customer officer, and he's just kind of going through the dashboard. So what was being shown kind of on the screen, well, what will be shown on the screen later is kind of Raja going through the UI of ExtraHop. And so ExtraHop, again, is a network security solution. And from what we're seeing, like it is very thorough, educational, and the UI is beautiful. So anyways, Raja, I'll let you get back to it.
Thank you. So another thing I'd like to show you real quick over here, and again, this is not intended to be a feature dump. This is intended to show you the flexibility of what you can apply the ExtraHop system to. Of course, and again, I can talk about various things that we do in terms of identifying advanced persistent threats and the workflows, and I think we've hit that pretty hard. But there's another thing I'd like to point out over here as well, and that is, so I'm sorry, wrong button. That is what we call the metric catalog. Now, we've always heard over and over again, I know the data's in here somewhere. The network is complete. It's so rich, but I don't know exactly how to plot it. Well, I don't know exactly where it is. And this is a case where we have the ability to take what we call a metric catalog, which means all the metadata that is extracted by the ExtraHop system, and we can search on it and we can plot it and graph it. And by the way, this is not just things that we plot, that we in our infinite wisdom have decided to plot. We can do things where if you define a custom stat, if you define a payment processing protocol, if you install something third party, it shows up here as well. And in fact, that comes up with the custom designation. So if you want to add your own stats, you can make a stat, you can add it, you can search for it. So for example, let's pick something. Let's pick SSL. Let's see what we have for SSL. And now all of a sudden, we have this complete view as to various things. We might want to say, okay, how many times have we seen a particular metric? And here's the REST API. If you want to pull it out, this is how you do it. So it's not just about showing you the metrics that we've stored, but it's about making sure that you have the ability to take this information, operationalize it, and pull it into your third-party systems too. So if you want to use our data store, no problem. That's what it's there for. Any thoughts before I show you something else that's cool? Like I said, I could keep on going.
No, I'm just, I think it's just really impressive, like how integratable, and like how much I think it's not just like the features, but I think it's the thought that kind of went behind into bringing out these features. You know, these aren't. Anyways, sorry, I'm gonna ramble on a little bit if I keep talking, but yeah, I just think it's impressive, like how much thought like your company and you have put into like making this not just like a like not just like a typical like platform, but it's like, hey, like there's all these kind of customizable like, or like if you guys want, if the company wants, if your customer like wants like kind of like that integration, boom, you have it. Like just having that option, right? I think is just really impressive.
It is a data platform for information that is gathered off the wire without the need for instrumentation or pulling logs. It's all there. I mean, in cases where we see this all the time, right? So let's say take a case where you are an admin in a PCI DSS environment inside AWS, and you're attempting to roll out your application, and there's been a new mandate from up on high that says you've got to be running TLS 1.3 with elliptic curve cryptography. Well, how about that? Straight away, you have your metrics straight away over here. You can build a dashboard around it. You can export it. You can put it into your third party. You can take this information, drop it in the place of your choice. It's your data, and that's actually something that I want to be clear about. One thing about ExtraHop is I've seen a disturbing trend in the industry today of companies that take your data and they monetize it. They take your information and they behave like it's theirs. This information is yours. We don't it is your data. You should be able to put it wherever you want. You can, if you want to use our UI, that's great. If you want to put it in any other system, that's fine too. This is your data, and that's actually something that we've held to from day one as well. I want to talk a little bit about something else that we've sort of glossed over a little bit, but I want to put some wood behind this arrow. There's a lot of times when people talk about analytics and they talk about the visualizations, and yes, this honestly, some of these visualizations, let's be honest here, I mean, they are kind of Coke and Pepsi, whether somebody has a halo chart or somebody has a flow diagram or somebody uses a different kind of visualization, it's dealer's choice. But the actual value, in addition to fairly somewhat subjective claims of usability, is around what you can do with that information. So I'm going to show you something over here real quick. It's a concept that we have. It's called a bundle. And what a bundle basically does is it's like a third-party app that you can snap in to an ExtraHop system. So I mentioned Drupalgeddon earlier on, right? And what Drupalgeddon, so what you can do with something like a Drupalgeddon is we have these detectors where you can download these bundles and you can snap them into the system. And now all of a sudden you have brand new UI screens, you have new rules to detect things, and new detections popping up on your system. And so these are cases where you can actually, whatever your use case might be, health corporations, you might want to find a new non-active directory client that showed up. It's not attached to your AD server. What happened? All these things show up, and you can snap these in. But beyond that, let's say you want ExtraHop to work well with a third party. Well, what you can do is you can actually go to our gallery over here, and this takes you over to our website. And actually, let me increase my font real quick here. And you will see that we have snap-ins with App Dynamics, with AWS quarantining. I mentioned this earlier on in passing, where we identify something, we say, hey, that's bad, shut it down. You'll see that we can connect with SIEMs, we can connect with third-party firewalls, we can do various things over here on CMDBs. We have even the case where, now we have cases where everybody's working from home. You might want to actually quantify and understand what's happening with understanding traffic traversing a VPN. And so there are various cases over here where we've tried to take this information and snap it in so that it's immediately and instantly usable by our customers. And it's actually something, again, that is core to the tenet of making this information usable immediately without having to sit around trying to re-architect the application.
The theme is extensibility to me. Like I just love how customizable it's. You said it was a platform. To me, it's platform is the tip of the iceberg. I think when you start to have all of these different chunks and pieces, and you start to build um, these bundles on top, and you really make it extensible, and you really uh, are thoughtful about the user experience and the users who are using it. I mean, yeah, much more than a product. I said earlier when I introduced the show, I said we have a product, but no, this is a lot more. So I'm very impressed.
Really appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you very much. And yeah, so ultimately, where this all starts and ends is with the customer experience. I mean, it's something that we hold very, very dear. The bottom line for us is making sure that our customers are empowered by and everything you see over here, everything you see around quarantining. I mean, I can't point to a single thing that we have in our UI or in our workflow that isn't in some way related to a customer. So for example, let's take this. How many of you today have had issues with, I don't know, an SSL certificate expiring? We see this all the time, right? SSL certificate expires, and then, I mean, that happens to everyone. And then the application breaks down. It's super embarrassing. So actually, let's understand that a little better. And to be really clear over here, I don't know whether this data is in this demo. So I'm totally off script right now. And if I fall on my face, give me the benefit of the doubt. We'll blame it on the coffee.
We'll just edit it out, right? It's not.
Sure, but let's take a look at this real quick here. So firstly, what I'm going to do is over here is I'm going to go to assets, and as I take a look at my assets, I'm going to drill down over here, and I'm going to take a quick look and say, okay, show me my assets, everything that's talking SSL, right here, and I have 16 servers. Now, bear in mind, what did I mention earlier on? I said that when I detect something, I want to know how it's used. So I'm going to click down over here, and straight away, I'm going to generate myself an activity map of where my SSL servers are used inside the environment. So I'm looking at this. These are who my SSL servers are talking with and what the various assets and suspicious activities I've seen inside my environment over here. So I've just mapped out all my SSL servers. Okay, that's good to know. Now, from here, I want to understand exactly what these SSL servers are doing. And I talked about the certificate expiration just now, right? So I'm going to scroll down over here and let's see what we see. And actually, just give me 1 second. I see over here as SSL servers. And as I drill down on my SSL servers, I can see the version of SSL each one of them is using. And I can see the content type. I can see the top alerts. And here we go. I see my certificate expiration dates. Now, really interestingly, another thing I can actually do is I can set up an alert. I can say, hey, if let me know if any particular certificate, and of course these are all fairly expired, but if any certificate is within 30 days of expiration, send an alert and let me know straight away. These are the cases where we don't have to even program in what certificates to look for. It's literally that if I see an SSL server inside my environment with a certificate that's going to expire in 30 days or less, I don't care if you've told me to look for it or not. Let me know. And these are cases where our customers, especially in dynamic environments, especially in DevOps environments, they have told us over and over again, repeatedly, that these are cases that provide them tremendous value.
So I think just to kind of talk a little bit about like the customers that you've already worked with, are there any kind of standout stories that you wanted to kind of share? I mean, I know we have talked about hey, on average, the industry when it comes to kind of threat hunting, it can take up to a week for you to kind of for the security people to get all the information and to kind of present it in a meaningful way to the head of security. I guess a bit going on the same vein, what kind of success stories have you kind of seen with actual customers? You don't have to name customers, obviously, but yeah.
Actually, you know what? So I'll actually mention. So we are a company that focuses tremendously on customer delight, and I'll name the customers because this is actually one who's gone on the record for us as a public reference. Ulta Beauty. Ulta Beauty, of course, they make a cosmetics company. And one really interesting thing is in their cloud journey, Ulta Beauty said, okay, one of the reasons that all these organizations are getting breached today is because they have a silo between security and between operations. That's a silo that shouldn't exist. The bottom line is, if you take a step back and you really think about it, the same questions that are asked for operations are actually asked for security. Now, you might use the results differently, but for example, if if my operations team is asking the question is, hey, why is that database running a backup across my network in the middle of the day? The security team may be asking the question, why is that database exfiltrating information across my network in the middle of the day? It's actually the same thing. The same thing happened. The web server team may be asking, hey, um, we're getting crushed by 100,000 requests per second on Tuesday afternoon, 2 in the afternoon. And the security team might be sitting there saying, well, are we getting a DDoS? Is that what's happening? It's actually the same thing. And so Alta broke down the silo between operations and security. And operations and security meet in the cloud. That's where they meet. Because the bottom line is, we talk about shared responsibility, and shared responsibility might be between the cloud provider and the tenant, but it also is around. It's also a philosophy around making sure that security is everyone's job. And so, just in that same way, if you're developing an application and you're trying to roll it out and you want it to be fast, you want it to be secure, and you want it to be available. You can't pick two and get away with it. And so Ulta is an example of an organization where they broke down the silo between security and operations. And they basically, if you're involved in operations at Ulta, you're involved in security. Similarly, another one of our customers, again referenceable, is Wizards of the Coast, big AWS customer. And what they have over there is they have this concept of rehydration, right? So they literally will go in, they've got these very aggressive dev schedules. They'll release these new applications. There is security is of paramount importance, and they will literally tear down the entire environment, rebuild it, and they'll go really, really quickly. So it's not just about making sure that the environment's secure. It's making sure that it's secure, that they're building it up from scratch, they're building it up reproducibly. That then when they provide these maps, these user activity maps and dependencies maps, they can see what's being rolled out is what they expect it to be, as opposed to, hey guys, did you know that we're running Postgres today? And we had no idea.
No, thanks for that. That's a great story. Yeah. So Mo, I guess do you kind of have any? Should we kind of go into a little bit more some of the features?
I think I'm Eugene right now, by the way.
Yeah, apologies for that. I messed up and I clicked the wrong button.
No worries. Yeah, Raja, do you have anything else? Do you have any closing thoughts for the audience, or do you have any more things that you'd like to show us about the product?
Yeah, I mean, so look, I can go into the features, into the workflows, into the functionality in gory detail. I mean, in fact, there's some really powerful integrations that we have. I mean, as an example, we actually have a number of our customers who will send alerts into a Slack channel, just as an example, right? So the system has ML on the back end. It sits there, it's always watching, it's always identifying things, and it will literally, it's literally a virtual ML member of their operations Slack channel as they speak with various things. And I've got as you can imagine, I've got tons and tons of use cases where I can get into that. But rather than go into feature after feature after feature, one thing I'd like to show you, if you will, is how you would how you get to try this out. And it's actually pretty. What you can do is you can go straight onto Marketplace. And if you go into Marketplace and you do a search for ExtraHop, this is what you want to hit. The second field right here is, and let me increase the font real quick. We have a free trial. And this free trial, again, this is the SaaS I was mentioning. What you do is you basically set up the mirroring endpoints inside your VPC, and you're off to the races. So you can give it a try and see what you think. I would love, personally speaking, I would absolutely love your feedback as well. So my email address is raja@extrahop.com. I'm extremely passionate about understanding how people see value or not in what we're bringing to market. That again, you guys, you're the ones who set value. Uh, we we try to align it with pricing, if you will. And so for us, we would love your thoughts. This is how you'd go about doing it. Also, going to extrahop.com. And if you go to start demo, this is what I was talking about. I promise you, we won't be all over you in terms of calling you like 15 times a day. We're not crazy stalkers. Yeah, most of the time, these are cases where if you want to try out, go through these threat hunting scenarios as well. These are things that we can do. Now there's functionality over here around understanding what S3 buckets people are touching, understanding what's happening, what your instances are. Again, I can go through feature dump after feature dump, but I'm not sure that it brings more value over what we've touched on right now. Again, although I'd love your thoughts. I mean, I don't see the Twitch, the chat stream or anything. But if there's any questions over here, if there's anything I can clarify, I'd love to get into it.
I think right now there aren't any questions. But I think just kind of like, kind of going with like what you're kind of showing with like, checking out like the different demos. Can you kind of just like walk us through? So I think we have a link to the extrahop.com /demos, and there's a couple of different like scenarios. And I think we've gone through a couple of these already, correct? So I guess like, is there anything else, like kind of a click, like kind of like a call to action outside of just like, signing up that like, our audience can kind of learn about like, about like packets and like, network security and just kind of the wealth of information in like, in the network?
Yeah, I mean, so what I would suggest is, of course, you could always sign up for the demo. You could sign up on Marketplace as well to get this up and running inside your environment. See what it's like for you. I mean, showing our data is one thing, but seeing it really come alive, and when you can see how quickly this actually shows you the dependency map between your assets and brings things to your attention, that's when it becomes more real, if you will. Again, none of this is synthesized information, right? I didn't take you through some sort of UI walkthrough with everything working just perfectly. What you actually saw was actual queries on the back end. That packet retrieval on the back end, that was real. The retrievals from the cloud store, from the record store, that was all real stuff that's happening. The ML detections, it's all real. But if you want to see what it's actually like inside your environment, sign up on Marketplace, you get it up and running. Again, if there's something that wasn't clear, you can hit the tour, go to the demo, go through the tour. It'll walk you through various scenarios, including various threat hunting scenarios. There's a scenario with a red team, blue team metasploit, so you can actually catch somebody in those environments, and it'll show you exactly how you can threat hunt and catch somebody trying to breach your environment. Beyond that, there's in terms of a call to action, if you send an email to info@extrahop.com, or if you sign up for information, more information about our systems, we're always around. And again, if you want a non-sales approach, and if you want to talk with me about something that you've seen over here, reach out to me, Raj@extrahop.com. I'm around. I would love to talk with you and get your thoughts.
And
Awesome.
actually, sorry, Mo, I actually have one more question, and this is actually pretty. I should ask like way back, but we went through like we kind of went through like the dashboard, and we've talked a lot about kind of investigation.
Yes.
Right. So I would say, like, in some of the services that I was bringing up from AWS earlier, like, WAF, like Shield and things like that. So I would say that there's many other companies that are also investing in kind of like, protection and prevention tools. I guess like, what, like, kind of like listening and like going through like this going through the product, it seems like you're of the mentality to just really hone in, because I mean, again, like the level of detail and that kind of timeline of events of like, when a certain like, server was, kind of corrupted and things like that. Like, how come, like, where is that kind of mentality coming from in terms of arguing more for a detection and investigation kind of mindset?
Yeah. So here's the I'm going to make a controversial statement. For many, many years, security focused completely on keeping the bad guys out. It was based on the flawed premise that you could keep the bad guys out, and that's been the problem. That's how you ended up with perimeter-based security. That's how you ended up with this castle and moat structure. And the bottom line is, we kept on seeing this over and over again. We'd see people, they would roll out all these protections all over the place, and then all it would take was for somebody to put their password on a post-it, or socially engineer or somebody in the organization to give up their credentials, or it would be a phishing email, spear phishing. And all of a sudden, all these whiz-bang things that people roll out, C2 security and mandatory access controls and all sorts of things that put people. I mean, I still remember when everyone was talking about SE Linux. SE Linux developed by the NSA is going to save everybody because, it'll make sure that every syscall inside a Linux server is credentialized and nobody would be able to do anything. And unfortunately, yeah, nobody could do anything because it was so cumbersome to roll out. But the problem was that the bad guys were already in, or they would pick the weakest link. And so the philosophy we've taken with NDR and the philosophy that these new wave security companies like us are taking is that the bad guys are already in. And it's a matter of time. And in fact, even John Chambers from Cisco, he said this like 7 years back. He said there's two kinds of companies. The ones that have been breached, and ones that are about to find out that they've been breached. They're already there's already levels of compromise. The question is how you contain it. How do you react to it? How do you respond to it? And we believe, again, with every fiber of our collective being, that the network is the best place to start because it is so complete. That's where you start. Now, from there, you can take a deep dive. You can drill into various things as you identify anomalies, but you start with the network.
Raja, man, the audience loved it. I think Alex Masha says good stuff. Business agrees. Pone Noobs, funny commentary. Thank you, everyone, for asking the questions that you asked in the chat and really engaging with us today. As is tradition on the show, Raja, we always like to end with a sign-off. And as you might have guessed with the theme of the show, the Howdy, it's Western themed. I'm based here in Austin, Texas. So we give you three options. You get the happy trails, the giddy up, and the y'all come back now. Y'all come back now. Which of those three do you choose?
It's got to be giddy up. It's giddy up.
Yeah, like that. Eugene, what about you?
I gotta agree with Raja. I think especially after today, it really kind of puts into perspective of like what you can do so quickly with ExtraHop. So I would have to say giddy up.
I'll giddy up as well. Thank you, everyone, for your time, and we'll see you again soon.